What's good, y'all? It's Rico. I'm making this video just after midnight on Wednesday, but the NBA trade deadline, the news surrounding it, started heating up Monday night. And this past afternoon on Tuesday, we got our first big name player getting traded since Trae Young was dealt to the Washington Wizards as the Memphis Grizzlies traded Jaren Jackson Jr. to the Utah Jazz. So I was waiting on my train to head to class earlier when I took my phone out. My phone was on D&D, but I took my phone out to check my notifications and look at the time, and I saw the Twitter update that he was traded to the Jazz, and that caught me completely off guard. And I honestly just couldn't wait to get home to talk about it. But him getting traded to Utah was honestly like one of the last places I would have thought he would have ended up. And so according to Shams, the full deal was Jaren Jackson Jr., John Conchar, Jock Lawndale, and Vince Williams Jr. heading to Utah in exchange for Walter Clayton Jr., Kyle Anderson, Taylor Hendricks, George Niang, and three future first round picks. So a trade between just two teams involving 11 assets, eight players, and three first round picks, which is pretty crazy. That's I honestly thought he would be able to go for more than that, but clearly Memphis was just more interested in clearing their books and getting some more draft picks and having more stability in the future and flexibility just to just bring in whatever players they need, have more flexibility with their roster, and just have more space to get some more young assets and possibly flip them in the future if any other stars become available. So I honestly love this trade for the Jazz because it signals that they're finally fully engaged in becoming a competitive team, a competent team in the Western Conference, and they're aiming to make the playoffs next season. A lot of the time when Jaren Jackson Jr. is mentioned, people are talking about how poor of a rebounder he is for his size. With me being one of those people, because he's a 6'10 power forward, averaging just under 6 rebounds per game. However, that talk around his poor rebounding really takes away from people being able to appreciate his ability as a defender. And people often forget that he's a two-time All-Star and he was just the Defensive Player of the Year 3 seasons ago. So he also finished in the top 10 last season in the DPOY race, and he was in the top 5 the year before he actually won. So he's a perennial DPOY candidate. He's a great defender, but people don't really talk about it that much, and that just takes away from people appreciating who he really is as a player and how big of an asset he is to any competitive team. And keeping in mind the fact that he's one of the best offensive perimeter bigs in the league, a pairing of him and Walker Kessler has the potential to be one of the best defensive backcourts we'll be able to watch. And him on the wing alongside Laurie Markkinen, who can play the small forward position, and he's averaged 27 points per game this season, can give a lot of different teams a lot of problems. And getting into some of the other young pieces Utah has, Isaiah Collier, he just finished the game against the Pacers this a few hours ago. He had 17 points and 22 assists and only 2 turnovers. And Utah only had 7 players active for that game, but that doesn't matter. Isaiah played all 48 minutes, and he's been clearly showing this season that he could be a very competent playmaker for all the scorers that Utah has on his team, with Jaren Jackson being one of those new players that he can play make for. Keontae George is an emerging star at the guard position for the Jazz, averaging 24 points per game on the season on increased volume and efficiency from his first 2 seasons, and he's still just 22 years old, so he's going to continue to improve and possibly become an all-star in the future. And obviously, they have other young players like Bryce Sensabaugh, who's also 22, and he's shown a lot of improvement this season. Then they have Ace Bailey, who they just selected 5th overall last year. He was a projected top 3 pick. People were arguing for him to be number 1, maybe number 2 in the draft until all that stuff happened, like leading up to it. And he's been steadily getting more accustomed to the NBA game, and he's still only 19 years old. He was born in 2006. So if he can continue to get better and potentially take a jump anywhere near the superstar potential he was said to have leading up to the 2025 draft, the Jazz are in an amazing spot. A potential lineup of a 6'4 Keontae at point guard, a 6'9 Ace Bailey at the 2 spot, 7'1 Laurie at the 3, A 6'10 Triple J at the 4 and a 7'2 Walker Kessler at the 5 can be crazy for any team to go up against. Looking at the current Western Conference standings, the Jazz are the third worst team with a record of 16-35, making them the sixth worst team in the entire league. So obviously they won't have any playoff success this year, and I don't see them really making a play-in push. And I think it'd be smart for them to do what the Wizards are doing currently with Trae Young and just have him sit out with his injury for the rest of the year so they can continue their tank and get a top pick in the draft. So I think that Jaren Jackson Jr. should sit out for the rest of the year with one of those mysterious injuries like teams always do, because let's be real, this year's draft is way too good for them to try to be competitive right now and miss out on potentially getting one of these great players that's coming up. Um, they should just get their top 8 pick, because if they don't end up in the top 8, OKC will get their pick. So end up in the top 8, draft another great young player, start your playoff push next season where I can see a reality where they're better than any team in the West, not named the Thunder, Spurs, Nuggets, Rockets, or Lakers. Because I feel like LeBron won't be on the Lakers next season, but they'll have a lot of cap space, and I think that as long as they get Luka, a competent big man, and some more like wing scorers and defenders, they'll just be as good and they'll be in the playoffs easily. Now, for the Grizzlies side of things, I did not expect them at all to get rid of Jaren Jackson Jr. before they got rid of Ja Morant, because as we all know, for the past year, honestly longer than that, there's been like constant like controversy involving Ja and the Grizzlies, and there's been talks of like them, Ja and the Grizzlies, parting ways from each other. And with Triple J getting his contract extension and Memphis being one spot outside the play-in right now, I didn't think that their front office would commit to the tank like right now and start their rebuild, because the Grizzlies organization just seems like one of those organizations that's just always trying to be in the playoff push and always in the picture, because they have like that grit and grind era really like set in, like that mentality that kind of like the Miami Heat have, where it's like they always want to be trying to be good even when they clearly won't go all the way all the time. But I don't know. I think that they'll honestly, like, it's just a great decision for them to actually just pick a direction. They know what they want to do now, and that's the most important part. And I honestly haven't been watching much of the Jazz, so I don't know like exactly how well the players that they've gotten back in the trade have been doing. But Walter Clayton Jr., I was a big fan of his in college, so I think that him getting those guard minutes after Jaws eventually traded will be great for his development. And hopefully Taylor Hendricks can come back from that gruesome leg injury he had and be a similar player to who he was before, if not even better. He's still very young as well, so I do have full confidence that he will be able to return and be back to his great form. Um, the Grizzlies, they also created a $28.8 million trade exception, which is the largest in NBA history per Bobby Marks. George Niang is off the books after the season, and Kyle Anderson has one more year on his contract after this year, and he's only going to be getting paid $9 million. So Memphis is essentially making themselves one of the most flexible teams in the league, clearing a ton of salary cap space, having an exception to make a deal for an impact player sometime soon, and having 12 first round draft picks in the next 7 years. So they're in a similar position to OKC or the Brooklyn Nets, where they have all these draft picks. They can use them to continue picking like young players, hopefully hitting on those picks and building their team back up from scratch. Or maybe when another superstar wants out in the future, they can package those picks and get their guy. So I'm interested to see where Ja goes. Maybe Minnesota or Miami jumps in on that, because I did see a report that the Grizzlies have lowered their asking price on him. And I just want to see what other moves they potentially make before the deadline is officially over and over the offseason. And I'm just glad to see both of these organizations finally pick a direction. And peace.